Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how are you today? And we hope you always happy and stay healthy. Here we are from the fifth group. We are going to talk about our material today about the equivalent at word level. Here our materials. First, lexical meaning that will be presented by me, and then problem of translating at word level that will be presented by our friend FATICHA FARADISA, and an idiom that will be presented by our friend Dhenisa. Let's start with the lexical meaning first. Lexical meaning. What is a lexical meaning? So, every word or lexical unit has something that individual that makes different from any other word, and it's just the lexical meaning which is the most outstanding individual property of the word. It means that it tells of as the specific value it has in a particular linguistic system and the personality it acquires through usage within that system. It's rarely possible to analyze word, pattern, or structure into distinct components of meaning. The way in which language work is much too complex to allow that. And here, the kind of strategies to translate at lexical meaning, there are four types. First, propositional meaning, expressive meaning, presupposed meaning, and evoke meaning. Let's start with propositional meaning first. Prepositional meaning of a word or an utterance arises from the relation between it and what it refers to or describes in a real or imaginary word. For example, the prepositional meaning of shirt is a piece of clothing worn on the upper part of the body, right? Next, expressive meaning. Expressive meaning cannot be judged as true or false. The reason because expressive meaning relates to the speaker's feeling or attitude rather than to what words or utterance refer to. For example, the difference between don't complain and don't whine doesn't lie in their prepositional meanings. Two or more words or utterances can therefore have the same propositional meaning, but differ in their expressive meaning, like that. And the third, presupposed meaning. Presupposed meaning arises from CO occurrences restriction or on what other word or expressions we expect to see before or after particular lexical unit. This restriction divided into two types. First, selectional restriction. We expect a human subject for the adjective studious and an inanimate one for geometrical. And then collocational restriction. These are semantically arbitrary restrictions which don't follow logically from the propositional meanings of a word. For example, in English, we know that teeth are brushed, but in German and Italian, teeth are polished. Next, we have evoke meaning. Evoke meaning that arises from a dialect and register variation. A dialect is a variety of language which has currency within a specific community or group or speakers. It may be classified on one of the following bases. First, geographical example. American as opposed to British. For example, we know that the difference between American and British between lift and elevator. And then temporal example. Word used at different periods in the history of a language. Fairly and really. And the third one, social example, scents in perfume. Register variation arises from variations in the following: file of discourse, tenor of discourse, and mode of discourse. File of discourse. This is a term for what is going on that is relevant to the speakers. Yes. Remember, what is going on that is relevant to the speaker's choice of linguistic items. For example, linguistic choices will vary according to whether the speaker is taking part in a football match or discussing football. Tenor of discourse. An abstract term for the relationships between the people taking part in this discourse. For example, American teenager may adopt a highly informal tenor with their parents by using their first name instead of mom or mother and dad or father. Mode of discourse. An abstract term from the role that the language is playing, such as speech is a lecture, a structure, and from its medium of transmission, such as spoken or written. For example, a word such as "re" is perfectly appropriate in a business letter, but is rarely, if ever, used in spoken English.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is FARADISA PUTRI ADILA, and here I want to continue with the next material. And the next material it's called problem of translating and problem of non-equivalence at word level. In translation, there must be found some words in the search language that do not have direct equivalence in the target language. According to Becker, non-equivalence at word level means that the target language has no direct equivalence for a word which occurs in the search text. There are some common problems of non-equivalence. And the common problem of non-equivalence, the first problem is uh, the culture-specific concepts. The search language word may express a concept which is totally unknown in the target culture. The concept in questions may be abstract or concrete. It may be related to a religious belief, a social custom, or even a type of food. Such concepts are often referred to as culture specific. In Indonesia, there is a kind of food that made of soybean and called tempe. This name of food does not have any direct equivalence in English, and people from foreign countries will keep calling it tempe or tempe. It means that culture have a significant influence to the translation equivalence since in this word there is so much culture. And the second problem is the search language concept is not lexically in the target language. This problem occurs when the search language expresses a word which easily understood by people from other culture, but it is not lexically but not but it is not lexically. For the example, the word savory has no equivalent in many languages. Also, it expresses a concept which is easy to understand. It means that a concept that is known by people in some areas does not always have the lexis in every area. And the third is the search language is semantically complex. This problem happens when the search language word is semantically complex. Words do not have to be morphological complex or to be semantically complex. And a single word, which consists of a single morpheme, can be more complex than a whole sentence. For the example is the word arhuaco, a Brazilian word which means clearing the ground under coffee trees of rubbish and peeling it in the middle of the row in order to aid in the recovery of beans dropped during harvesting. And the first is the search and target language make different distinction in meaning. The target language may make more of a different distinction in meaning than the search language. For the example, Indonesian make a distinction between going out in the rain without the knowledge that it is raining or kehujanan and going out in the rain with knowledge that it's also raining or hujan-hujanan. Therefore, every language has its own distinction in defining a word. And the next is the target language, like a superordinate. The target language may have specific words or hyponym, but not the general word or superordinate to head the semantic fields. The next is the target language, like a specific term or hyphonym. And languages tend to have general words are called superordinate, but like the specific ones, hyphonyms, since each language makes only those distinction in meaning which seems relevant to its particular environment. The example from Indonesia words is membawa. The word membawa has some specific term which does not have the direct equivalence in English. They are also menjinjing, menyungging, and memanggul. And the next one is the differences in physical or interpersonal perspective. Physical or interpersonal perspective, which has to do with where things or people are in relation to one another or to a place, may be more important in one language than in another. For the example, in Japanese has three equivalents for it. The first one is called mangan, nedo, and dahar. When talking to older person or younger person, a person should use appropriate word whether he is talking to a younger an older person or a person in the similar age with him. The next is the differences in expressive meaning. There may be a target language word which has the same prepositional meaning as the search language word, but it may have a different expressive meaning. Differences in expressive meaning are usually difficult to handle when the target language item. This is often the case with items which relate to sensitive issues such as religion, political, and sex. For the example, it may be possible in some contexts to render the English verb better, as in child or wife bettering, by the more neutral Japanese word "tatako", meaning it's to beat, plus an equivalent modifier such as savagely or ruthlessly, and every language usually has its own words that have different expressive meaning. The next is differences in form. There is often no equivalent in the target language for a particular form in the search text. Curtain suffix and prefix, which convey prepositional and other types of meaning in English, and often have no direct equivalence in other language. For example, English has many couplets such as employer, trainer, and trainee, and payer and payee. It also makes frequent use of suffix such as ish, as the example boyish, hellish, greenish, and the word able, like conceivable, retrievable, and drinkable. It is important for the translator to understand the use of affix because it is often used to coin the new words. And the next is the difference in frequency and purpose of using specific forms. Even when a particular form does have a ready equivalent in the target language, there may be a difference in frequency with which it is used or the purpose for which it is used. And the last one is the use of loanwords in the search text. The use of loanwords in the search text poses a special problem in translation. Different in the original meaning, loanwords usually are used to show prestige. This matter is often impeded in terms of translation, which is caused by there are no equivalent words in the target language. There are the 11 problems of non-equivalence stated by Baker. However, not all languages face all types of the problem. Certain language will have certain problems which are different from another language, and that's all from me. Thank you for your nice attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Dhenisa Reshi PRESTIA and my ID number is 193200N74. Today I will talk about the last material in our topic, this equivalence at the word level, and I will discuss about the idioms. Idioms and fixed expression are frozen patterns of language which allow little or no variation in form and, in the case of idioms, often carry meanings which cannot be deduced from their individual components. For example, the long and the short of it. It means the basic facts of situation. A speaker or writer cannot normally do any of the following with an idiom. First, they cannot change the order of the word. For example, the short and the long of it. The second is they cannot add a word to it. For example, the very long and short of it. Number 3, they cannot delete a word from it, such as the long of it. And the last, they cannot change its grammatical structure, as in the long and the short it of. Fixed expressions have examples such as all the best, ladies and gentlemen, having said that, and a matter of fact, as well as proverbs such as practice what you preach and waste not one knot, allow a little or no variation in form. So, in the example, they behave very much like idioms. However, fixed expressions and proverbs often have fairly transparent meanings. But in spite of its transparency, the meaning of a fixed expression or proverb is somewhat more than the sum meanings of its word. The expression has to be taken as one unit to establish meaning. And now we move into the idioms, fixed expression, and the direction of translation. A person competent in actively using the idioms and fixed expressions of a foreign language hardly ever matches that of a native speaker. The majority of translators working into a foreign language cannot hope to achieve the same sensitivity that native speakers seem to have for judging when and how an idiom can be manipulated. This lends support to the argument that translators should only work into their language of habitual use or mother tongue. The main problems that idiomatic and fixed expressions pose in translation relate to two main areas. They are the ability to recognize and interpret an idiom correctly, and the difficulties involved in rendering the various aspects of meaning that an idiom or a fixed expression conveys into target language. And in the interpretation of idioms, we have three types. They are more easily recognizable include expressions of which violate truth conditions such as in "It's raining cats and dogs," "storm in a teacup," and "food for thought." It also includes expressions which seem ill-formed because they do not follow the grammatical rules of the language. For example, "blow someone to kingdom come" and "put paid to." And the expression which start with "like," as we know in simile, also tend to suggest that they should not interpret it literally, such as "like bat out of hell." And there are two cases in which an idiom can be easily misinterpreted. The first is some idioms are misleading, so they seem transparent because they offer a reasonable literal interpretation and their idiomatic meanings are not necessarily signaled in the surrounding text. For example, "someone for right." It has mean deceive or cheat someone in some way. And the second case is an idiom looks similar but it has a different meaning. For example, in English we have "has the cat cut your tongue?" It is used to answer a question, particularly when their failure to do so becomes annoying. And it has a similar expression that used in French with a totally different meaning. It means to give one's tongue cut, meaning to give up, for example, when asked a riddle. Now we move to the difficulties when translate of idioms, and we have four reasons in this discussion. So let's talk one by one. Number one is an idiom may have no equivalent in the target language. So idioms and fixed expressions which contain culture-specific items are not necessarily untranslatable. For example, we have in the English expression "to carry coals to Newcastle" is closely paralleled in German by "to carry all to Athens." So the both expressions convey the same meaning, to supply something to someone who already has plenty of it. Grunberg, 1989. Number 2. An idiom may have a similar counterpart in target language, but its context of use may be different. To sing a different tune, for example, has meaning to say or to do something that signals a change in opinion because it contradicts what one has said or done before. In Chinese, we have to sing different tunes or to sing a duet. It refers to contradictory points of view, but has quite different usage. It has strong political connotations and can be interpreted as expressing complementary. Also, Fernando and Flavel in 1981 compare the English expressions "to skate on thin ice." It means to act unwisely, with a similar Serbian expression "to pull someone onto the thin ice." The Serbian idiom differs from the English one in that it implies forcing someone into a dangerous position. Number 3, we have an idiom may be used in the source text in both its literal and idiomatic senses at the same time. For example, it comes from book entitled Arab Political Humor by Kishtani in 1985. So it has a sentence, if we get them back, I will cut off my right arm. So this idiom is similar with pigs might fly. It means that something is impossible or at least highly unlikely to happen. Neither this English expression nor any other English idiom with a similar meaning can be used to replace I will cut off my right arm, because the literal meaning of the Arabic expression is as important as its idiomatic meaning in this context. And the last, we have the context of its use, and the frequency of use in written discourse may differ in the source language and target language. And the following example illustrates the heavy idioms in this type of English written discourse. For example, we have get up and go, show what you're made of, and it's a lot more than just a pretty face. So the last, we have strategies when translate of idioms. And now we have 4 strategies to translate idioms. The first strategy is using an idiom of similar meaning and form. This strategy involves using an idiom in the target language which conveys roughly the same meaning as that of the source language idiom, and in addition consists of equivalent lexical items. For example, in the source text we have perhaps Gradamir wanted to show us that things aren't always what they seem. In the target text in French, the translation is perhaps Gradamir wanted to show us that things are not always what they seem. Number 2, using an idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. It is often possible to find an idiom or fixed expression in the target language which has a meaning similar to that of the source idiom or expression, but which consists of different lexical items. For example, in the source text we have feel the force of my fist, Frozenfin, and in the target text in German we have I will make things hot for you, monster. The statement is addressed to an ice monster. The German expression means I will put the heating on to you. Number 3 is translation by paraphrase. This is by far the most common way of translating idioms when a match cannot be found in the target language, or when it seems inappropriate to use idiomatic language in the target text because of differences in stylistic preferences of the source and target languages. For example, in the source text we have best news of all is the decision to develop a system of 5 nature reserves totaling 2,000 square kms where representative examples of the region's unique ecosystems will be protected for the future. And in the target text, in Chinese, we have the best news is a decision to develop a system of 1,000 square kms consisting of 5 reserves. In such a system, representative animal and plant species within the unique ecosystem of this area will be protected. So the sentence "the best news is" does not have the status of a fixed expression in Chinese, although it looks very similar to best news of all. It is just a paraphrase of the English expression. And the last strategy, we have translation by omission. As with single words, an idiom may sometimes be omitted altogether in the target text. This may be because it has no close match in the target language. Its meaning cannot be easily paraphrased or for stylistic reasons. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any question, you can ask on the WhatsApp group later. I think it's enough for today. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.